Welcome to Politically Unstable at the Washington Times. I'm Kelly Sadler, the commentary editor here. Today, I am joined by Reilly Stephens. He's a senior counsel at the Liberty Justice Center, and we're discussing a pending case that you have against the University of New Mexico for discriminating against a white student who wants to become a doctor. He did not get into the admissions process. He got rejected twice because of their admissions standards. Can you kind of take us through this case, your client, and an argument, if you will?
Yeah. So our case, we're representing a plaintiff against the University of New Mexico medical school and the officials there, and we're suing basically on the fact that we think there's clear evidence that they're continuing to engage in exactly the sort of discriminatory admissions practices that the Supreme Court said a couple years ago is illegal and unconstitutional. And New Mexico is both a public institution that has to adhere to the Constitution and also takes federal funds. So under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, they also have to adhere to non-discrimination for that reason. And this case came to me, and I just looked at it, and my client, he's actually he's the son of Syrian immigrants. His dad's a doctor, and his academic record is exceptional and well above the University of New Mexico Medical School's usual numbers. But he was waitlisted the first year, and then completely rejected the second year he applied. Because they said that he hadn't done well no one liked him in his interviews, and his essays didn't impress them. So they used these soft factors to decide that he wasn't worth their time. And when I saw this, I noticed immediately that this is exactly what it turned out in the Harvard case and the North Carolina case that the Supreme Court heard was happening, that what they would do at Harvard was with the Asian students, they would get rid of them and keep them out by deciding that they didn't have good personalities. Systematically, they were scoring them low on those factors. And so these are the kinds of games and things that universities are playing. We've seen them play around the country. It's been very obvious in the past few years that university administrations are really, really dedicated to discrimination because they have these very strong ideological commitments in many cases. We've seen university administrators around the country saying that they're absolutely going to try and dodge what the Supreme Court did and do this in other ways. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to try and stand up for the principle of equality under the law and to say that this stuff we need to put a stop to this.
Well, we interviewed Ian Kingsbury of Do No Harm a few weeks ago, and talking about the rankings that they do with medical universities, whether or not they're adhering to the Supreme Court challenge and getting rid of kind of the DEI admissions and doing it on merit-based only. And they ranked the University of New Mexico among the 5 worst schools in the nation that are accepting federal funds and not implementing the Supreme Court standards, that they're still incorporating race in their admissions process. With your client, kind of where does this stand in this court system right now? How has the University of New Mexico responded?
Yeah, so we just filed the case just last week, and so we're still at the early stages here. We have not actually gotten the formal response in any way from the University of New Mexico, or so we'll wait and see. But yeah, so this is now the beginning of this litigation, and so this is going to be take some time to go through the court system. But we are excited, and I'm really proud of the case we put together, and I look forward to doing what we can do for Michael.
So your client, where does he stand right now? Has he been admitted elsewhere to other medical schools? You can't delay your life, in terms of waiting for this to be resolved.
Yeah, he did after being rejected multiple times. He did end up going out of state for school, which is going to cost him a bit more money actually in the end. But he was able to get into medical school because, as I said, his actual credentials are actually quite impressive. He 4.0 GPA, 99 percentile in a lot of the MCAT sections. I think 96 percentile overall. Standard deviation above the University of New Mexico's average. He has publications He had, from his undergraduate days, he has worked in, he has volunteer experience working in the medical field. His father's a doctor or two, and so he was able to get into medical school. Just apparently not apparently New Mexico just didn't think he was right for them. But this also meant that he was also a resident of Mexico, so the in-state tuition and the benefits that are supposed to come from being a resident and taxpayer, he was not able to take advantage of those.
That's unbelievable to me, in the fact that it's a medical school, and he was rejected because of essays?
They said personal statements and interview scores.
Personal statements and interview scores, which are subjective at best. He's the 96th percentile overall with the MCAT score, which is the test that you need to take to get into medical school.
Correct.
4.0 GPA, can't do any better than that. Extracurriculars, you said that he had, but his interview is what ultimately tanked him at the University of New Mexico.
I think I should be correct and be wrong. I think it was like a 3.99 GPA.
Okay, all right, we can round up.
I'm rounding up to be clear. I want to be precise here.
Okay, all right. So are you seeing many of these cases around the country of students who meet, have all of the merit to get into schools, but schools still trying to work themselves around the Supreme Court ruling that applicants should not be based on race? Are they still basing, their classrooms and their admissions on race?
Well, I guess you have to ask them, but we have seen, and just speaking more broadly about what's been going on in the country, we've seen lots and lots of university administrators who have said things like, well, we'll come up with a way around this, right? Right, we'll come up with things that we're going to do
workarounds
that will use these subjective factors and you won't be able to catch it. In fact, what they had to do with Harvard was they had to get all the admissions data and run the numbers. And when they did, when they actually sat down and looked at the hard numbers of how disadvantaged you were being Asian applying to Harvard, it was also a disadvantage to be white relative to some minority groups, but it was really, really hard to get in if you were identified as an Asian American. The numbers were just gobsmacking.
Can you go over that Harvard case at the Supreme Court?
Sure.
Because that was a couple years ago, and as a refresher,
Sure.
kind of what was established and what the ruling was and why.
Sure. So the Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard, and also Students for Fair Admission versus the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, were the two cases. So it's a private school and a public school university were decided together. And this was the case where the Supreme Court finally said that what goes by the name of affirmative action, generally, in university admissions was unconstitutional if done by public institutions or institutions that take public money. Because, as the Supreme Court has said more than once, the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to just stop discriminating on the basis of race. And we're not, so they made it clear that these practices, which have been endemic in universities for decades. This all goes back to the 70s when the Supreme Court made a mistake in a case called Bakke, which is about the University of California Davis Medical School, actually, which in those days actually had a quota that specifically had I think it was 12 seats that were for African American applicants. The Supreme Court said no to that, but there was a concurrence in that case that said, that one justice said he thought, if they were doing it for purposes of diversity rather than, and just trying to create a campus that had lots of different interesting people on it, that would be okay. And that is why diversity became the buzzword that it is. It was to make one Supreme Court justice from the 1970s happy. And it took decades and decades of litigation and trying, and there was a case against Michigan, there was a case against Texas, and finally in 2022, the Supreme Court corrected its error and made it clear that the government can't actually treat us differently based on the color of our skin or our ethnic background.
And so are you arguing that in this case against the University of New Mexico? Are you alleging discrimination based on race?
Yes. We're basically saying, the thrust of our case is we think it's pretty obvious that they aren't listening to what was said by the Supreme Court, and I guess they need a reminder, maybe.
And so in your case, are you basing it on the Harvard decision and the North Carolina decision, or like what are the precedents for bringing a case like this?
Those are the key precedents. I mean, there are others, but those are that's the central precedent that covers this topic. So yes, that will be discussed a lot as we litigate this. I have no doubt. And
are you working at all with the administration, the Department of Education or the DOJ that has, when Donald Trump came into office, he vowed to end all DEI programs. He's withheld funds from public institutions of higher education, notably Harvard in particular. The president said that there might be a settlement coming soon in the coming days with Harvard. But have you reached out to anyone within the administration to highlight this case?
Not specifically, no. I mean, I work for a private organization. We're not affiliated with the administration or the government, or we're a nonprofit civil rights law firm. The Liberty Justice Center does these cases around the country, and so I'm well aware that I think the Department of Education has taken a strong line on this, and I think that it's a good thing that finally the Department of Education is enforcing the laws that have been on the books. And I want to comment on any specific action they've taken, but this case is not about them or about their policies. This is about Michael and asserting his rights on behalf of him. And I wish the Department of Education the best in all of their efforts.
And lastly, how did this case make its way to you? And why did you decide to take it on?
It came to me because, I'm not going to get into private conversations with my client, but it came to me because Michael was unhappy about what happened, and he wanted to do something about it. And I think I was saying earlier that I looked at the facts of the situation and talked to him and got to know what he was like as a guy, and I really wanted to try and help him. So I think he deserves it. I think he deserves to win this one. So.
And how long do you think this will take between bringing the case to some sort of verdict? I know with the legal system it can be a while, and it's sort of like a black box. But what?
It's impossible to say. But generally, these things take a couple years to work their way through. But I mean, you never know with these things.
And what is Michael looking for? Does he want an admission that the University of New Mexico is violating federal law in their admissions process? He's looking for some sort of financial reward because he was denied a public school in-state tuition?
Well, we actually are asking for his application fees back because he had to pay. I think it's $250. I might be off by a bit. Each year, and so we've actually asked for that money back. But this is not generally a case about big piles of money or anyone trying to get rich. This is a case about getting getting the courts to recognize and identify that these behaviors and these policies and these practices are illegal.
And what sort of message are you trying to send to the schools with a case like this, with higher education?
That the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is not to discriminate on the basis of race.
It's that simple. All right. Reilly Stephens, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.